So one thing most creators didn't realize they signed up for when they started creating content on YouTube was a much more complicated tax situation than they had previously. From not having any employer withholding money for you to all the different types of taxes you actually have to pay as a YouTube creator, it is a lot more complicated than most creators initially expect. And while there's a lot of ground to cover, and that's kind of what this whole YouTube channel is for, one of the most important areas for YouTube creators to make sure is on point is their AdSense information. So in this video, we're diving deep into your Google AdSense tax information, how to make sure that's set up correctly, and everything you need to know about Google AdSense taxes. Now, the first question that a lot of creators ask when it comes to AdSense is, do you actually have to pay tax on your AdSense earnings? And the answer to that is a solid yes. So on your AdSense income, you're going to be charged both income taxes and self-employment taxes. And if you live in a state where income taxes are charged at a state level, you might be paying that as well. Now, Google is going to be reporting to the IRS how much money they pay you every single year. And if you tell the IRS something different or nothing at all, you are probably going to run into some issues. So make sure that you are reporting this as income. You are going to need to pay taxes on it. Now, the next big question that a lot of YouTubers have is whether Google actually sends you a 1099 form for your AdSense income. Now, if you've worked as an independent contractor before, maybe you drive Uber on the side or something like that, you might be familiar with what a 1099 form actually is. It's what you receive if you are an independent contractor and working for someone not as a W-2 employee that is on payroll. Now, when an employer sends you a 1099 form, they're going to send one to you and one to the IRS. Again, that's going to tell the IRS how much money they paid you during the course of the year. Now, some creators will receive a 1099 form from Google for their AdSense income and some will not. So let's dive into who is getting one and who is not. So in order to get a 1099 form from Google, you have to meet one of the following criteria. Either be a sole proprietor that made over $600 from AdSense in the previous year, or you must be subject to backup withholdings. If you don't know what that means, do not worry about it. It probably doesn't apply to you. Now, just because you don't get a 1099 does not mean you don't have to pay taxes on your YouTube income. That $600 rule that I mentioned earlier, where if you're making under $600, they're not going to send you a 1099. That's just to save on administrative paperwork on Google's end. That does not mean you don't have to pay taxes on the income if it's less than $600. It just means Google doesn't actually have to send you a piece of paper that says they only paid you $200 during the course of the year. The IRS is still going to expect their taxes on that $200 regardless. Now, the second exception was if you're not a sole proprietor, you're probably not getting a 1099, but you still do have to recognize that income. Now, if you're set up as an LLC, which many YouTube creators who aren't sole proprietorships are set up as LLCs, you're going to be likely reporting that YouTube income on your Schedule C on your Form 1040. And if you don't know what that means, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to explain that to you. Now, what if you fall within those categories, but you didn't receive a 1099 or you don't know if you received a 1099 form from Google for your AdSense income? Well, you can actually request a 1099 form from Google. It's actually a very simple process to do. Now, I'll toss the link in the description below where you can fill out a simple form, send it off to Google, and they will figure out, one, were we supposed to send you a 1099? And then if they were, they'll send you a second one, or if they missed it on the first time around, they will send you a 1099 form straight to your email. Now, 1099s are typically sent out by the end of January. So if February rolls around and you have not yet gotten a 1099 for your AdSense income and you think you fall within one of those two categories, then it's probably a good move to get that form from Google so you can get started on your taxes. Now, that being said, let's talk about how much tax Google AdSense actually takes. Now, the first important note here is that there are no withholdings on your AdSense income, okay? So if Google is supposed to pay you $1,000, they're not taking out any money for taxes. They're giving you the full $1,000, and then it's your responsibility to figure out how the taxes actually work on that $1,000 worth of income. Now, for a lot of creators, this can lead to their first tax season being especially painful because they were not expecting such a high tax bill, okay? With your income taxes, your self-employment taxes, and state income taxes, depending on what tax bracket you're in, you could be looking at upwards of 50% of your income going to the federal government. So it's very important to keep that stuff in mind from the get-go and plan for this stuff as you go. Now, I have a full video on the 4 steps that you should take when you get paid on YouTube. You can check that out up here. But in that video, I actually detail the process of self-withholding taxes from yourself because you don't have an employer doing it for you. It can be very helpful to do it from yourself. That way, when tax time rolls around, it is not quite so painful. That's what I personally do. I have money set aside. Again, I detail it in that video, but would totally recommend checking that process out if you are worried about taxes and how much those are actually going to add up to be. Now, once that's all said and done, how do you actually submit your tax information to Google? Okay, because Google has to know a couple things about you before they can report your income to the government and actually issue you that 1099 if you are supposed to get one, or just report your income in general. So here's the step-by-step process that you need to take to give Google your tax information. Step 1 is going to be to log onto your AdSense account. So if you have ads on your YouTube videos, you have an AdSense account, you got to log in to that account. From there, you're going to select payments. From payments, you're going to select manage settings. From there, you'll scroll down to the payments profile and you'll click edit next to United States tax information. Then click on manage tax information, and then here you're going to find a guide for submitting your relevant tax information to Google. Additionally, if you ever need to update your information down the line, this is exactly the same process you'll follow to give that new information to Google whenever something does change. So now that you know everything you need to about your AdSense tax information, the next thing you should do is check out this video over here where I dive deep into exactly how your taxes are going to work on your first YouTube paycheck. Okay, this is a big point of a lot of stress for a lot of new YouTubers, so check this video out and it'll walk you exactly through the process of how taxes work on that first YouTube paycheck. So I'll see you over there.